Let me be honest with you about something that most relationship content out there completely gets wrong, and it's costing women years of their lives. Everyone talks about red flags like they're obvious, like they're written in neon letters above a man's head. Oh, just trust your gut. Oh, if he loved you, you'd know. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The most dangerous red flags are the ones that don't look like red flags at all. They look like passion. They look like intensity. They look like someone who's asterisk, really asterisk into you. And that's exactly why women who are intelligent, emotionally aware, and genuinely good people still end up in relationships that drain them, confuse them, and leave them questioning their own sanity. So today, I want to have a real conversation, not the surface level stuff you've heard 100 times before. I'm talking about the 6 red flags that actually matter, the ones hiding in plain sight, the ones that feel good at first and only reveal themselves once you're already emotionally invested. These aren't the obvious signs like he yells at strangers or he never has a job. These are the subtle, sophisticated patterns that fly under the radar, even for women who've been burned before. If you're new here, welcome Love Psychology Secrets. This channel is built around one idea, helping you understand the deeper psychology behind love, relationships, and human behavior, so that you stop making decisions based on feelings alone and start making them based on wisdom. If that sounds like what you need, hit that subscribe button and give this video a like. It genuinely helps this content reach more people who need it, and I promise you, this community is one of the best decisions you'll make for your love life. Now let's get into it. Here's the first thing I need you to understand before we dive into these red flags. There is a massive difference between loving someone and being in a healthy relationship with them. I want you to write that down if you need to. Love and relationship are not the same thing. You can deeply, genuinely love someone who is completely wrong for you. You can feel more love for a man than you've ever felt for anyone in your life. And that same man can be damaging to your emotional health, your self-worth, and your future. Love is a feeling. A relationship is a structure. And a feeling, no matter how powerful, cannot hold up a structure that has no foundation. This is why red flags are so dangerous in the early stages, because they show up while love is still being formed. They show up while the dopamine is high, while everything feels electric, while you're starting to imagine a future with someone. And by the time the feeling solidifies, by the time you're truly attached, the red flags have already done their work. They've already embedded themselves into the dynamic. They become just how we are. And now leaving feels impossible even when staying feels painful. So what I want to do today is give you a framework, not a checklist you skim and forget. A way of seeing, a lens you can put on early in dating so that you catch these things when you can still walk away cleanly before your heart is all the way in. Because the goal isn't to be suspicious of every man you meet. The goal is to be discerning. There's a difference. Suspicion is fear-based. Discernment is wisdom-based. And wisdom says information is your friend. The more you see clearly at the beginning, the better choices you make for your future. The first red flag is inconsistency that gets explained away. And I want you to sit with this one because it's the one women miss most often. Here's the pattern. He does something that bothers you. He cancels plans at the last minute. He goes cold for a few days. He says something that doesn't add up, and then he comes back with an explanation that makes total sense. It's reasonable. It's plausible. It even makes you feel a little guilty for noticing. I've just been dealing with a lot at work. I had a family situation I wasn't ready to talk about. I didn't want to burden you. And you think, okay, fair enough. Everyone has hard weeks. You don't want to be the person who can't give grace. The problem isn't the explanation. The problem is the pattern. Because one inconsistency with a good explanation, that's just life. 2, 3, 4 inconsistencies, each with its own perfectly reasonable explanation, that's a man who is either genuinely chaotic and not in a place to show up for anyone, or he's someone who has learned that a good explanation resets your concern without requiring him to change his behavior. And both of those are serious problems. I was talking to a woman recently who had been seeing a guy for about 4 months. She couldn't point to one specific thing he did wrong. Every time something felt off, he had a reason. But she came to me because she said, Stephen, I feel more anxious than I've ever felt in any relationship, and I don't even know why. I told her that anxiety is Dita. When someone is consistent, your nervous system relaxes. When someone is unpredictable, your nervous system braces. She wasn't anxious because something was wrong with her. She was anxious because her body understood the pattern before her mind was ready to. What you're looking for isn't perfection. You're not looking for a man who never has a hard week. You're looking for someone whose actions rhyme with his words over time. That rhyme, that alignment between what he says and what he does is consistency. And consistency is what love gets built on. Not grand gestures, not perfect days, consistency over time. Without it, you're not building a relationship, you're building a house of cards. The second red flag is love bombing. And I know you've heard the term before, but I want to go deeper than the definition because I think most people are still missing what makes it so effective and so harmful. Love bombing is when someone overwhelms you with affection, attention, intensity, and connection early in dating at a speed that doesn't match the actual time you've spent together. And the reason it works is not because women are naive. It works because it mimics exactly what a real deep emotional connection feels like. The warmth is real. The attention is real. The conversations feel real. The problem is the timeline. Think about it like this. Imagine you apply for a job and on day one, the manager comes in and says, "You're the best hire we've ever made. You're exactly what this company needed. We're thinking about making you VP." You'd feel great, right? Flattered, excited, but you'd also, if you were thinking clearly, feel a little unsettled because you haven't done anything yet. They don't actually know what you're capable of. They've decided on a narrative before the evidence is there. That's love bombing. A man who tells you you're his soulmate on week 2, who talks about moving in together before you've seen how he handles conflict, who makes you feel like the most important person in his world before you've even navigated a hard conversation together, that man isn't seeing you, he's projecting. He's falling in love with an idea, not a person. And when reality doesn't match the idea, which it never does, the intensity drops. Sometimes it drops slowly, sometimes overnight. And that drop feels like abandonment because you've been operating as though this was already a deep established relationship when in reality it was still an introduction. Real love builds, it deepens with time, with shared experience, with navigating difficulty together. If it feels like you're skipping chapters, pay attention. It doesn't mean he's a bad person, but it does mean something is driving that intensity, and it's worth finding out what before you're all the way in. The third red flag is when he struggles to take accountability for anything. Now, let me be precise here because there's a version of this that's obvious and a version that's subtle. The obvious version is the man who always has an excuse, always points the finger, always makes it someone else's fault. You've heard of that. Most women know to avoid that. The subtle version is the man who does take accountability in words, but whose behavior never actually changes. You're right, I should have texted you back sooner. I know I can be bad at that. He sounds self-aware, right? He's acknowledging the issue. He's not being defensive, but 2 weeks later, the same thing happens. And when you bring it up again, you get the same acknowledgement, the same reasonable response, and you're left wondering whether you're being too demanding for bringing it up again, because after all, he already said he was wrong. Here's the thing most people get wrong about accountability. It's not a statement, it's a behavior. True accountability means recognizing the impact of your actions, feeling genuinely motivated to change, and then actually changing, not once, not when you're being watched, but consistently. A man who says all the right things and then continues doing the same things isn't taking accountability. He's managing your reactions. And there is a big difference between a man who owns his behavior and a man who has learned that owning his behavior verbally is enough to keep the peace. One is growth, the other is performance. Think about it like fitness. If a personal trainer tells you every session that your form is wrong but never corrects it in the next session, that's not coaching, that's just talking. You want a man whose verbal acknowledgement leads to visible adjustment. That's how you know it's real. And in the context of dating, early behavior is your window into how he'll handle conflict, disappointment, and failure for years to come. A man who can't genuinely reckon with his own shortcomings cannot be a real partner. He can be many things, charming, attractive, fun, but he cannot hold up the weight of a long-term relationship where real mistakes will happen, where real harm will need to be repaired. The fourth red flag is when he treats you differently depending on who's watching. This one is insidious because in the beginning it shows up as a positive. In public, he's charming, attentive, affectionate. He introduces you confidently, speaks well of you in front of others. makes you feel like his priority. And privately, there's distance, there's irritability, there's a coldness that doesn't match the warmth he shows the world. Or sometimes it's reverse. He's warm and loving in private, but in public or around his friends, he's dismissive. He makes jokes at your expense. He acts like you're just someone he's casually seeing. Even if your private conversation suggested something much more serious, both versions of this are a red flag, and here's why. Integrity in a relationship means the person you get in private is consistent with the person you get in public. Not identical. Of course, people adapt their energy slightly in different contexts, but fundamentally the same. A man who treats you like gold when no one is watching and like an afterthought when people are is showing you that your feelings are conditional on his image management. And a man who treats you differently around his friends, who suddenly becomes distant or performatively unbothered to maintain some image of freedom or coolness, that man is telling you that your relationship is subject to social approval. He hasn't decided what you mean to him independently of what other people might think. And you deserve someone who doesn't need an audience to love you, right? I spoke with someone once, a woman who had been with a man for almost a year, and she described it as feeling like she was dating two different people. One showed up in their apartment, one showed up at dinner parties. She kept thinking, maybe I'm not secure enough. Maybe this is normal and I'm just not used to being loved this way. But it wasn't a security issue, it was a consistency issue. And the moment she named it as a red flag rather than a personal flaw, everything became clearer. The fifth red flag is how he responds when you express a need. This one is so important and so overlooked because early in dating, we tend to be on our best behavior. Everyone's showing up, everyone's generous, everyone's patient. But at some point, you're going to need something, an emotional need, a logistical need, a need for reassurance, a need for more quality time. And the way a man responds to that moment tells you almost everything about what kind of partner he'll be. Some men respond with genuine curiosity. Tell me more about what you need. I want to understand. Some respond with immediate action. They hear you and they adjust. Those are both excellent signs. But some men, and this is the red flag, respond to your need by making you feel like the problem. They get defensive. They deflect. I'm doing my best. Nothing I do is ever enough. You're too sensitive. They flip the vulnerability back on you. So now instead of your need being addressed, you're apologizing for bringing it up. That pattern where expressing a need leads to you managing his emotions rather than him engaging with yours, that pattern is called emotional inversion. And it's one of the most exhausting dynamics that can develop in a relationship. Because what ends up happening is you stop bringing your needs. You get smaller. You start calculating whether something is worth bringing up, whether you can afford the emotional cost of asking for something. And slowly, without even realizing it, you become a person who has learned to need less. But you haven't actually changed your needs. You've just stopped voicing them. And unvoiced needs in a relationship turn into resentment. They turn into distance. They turn into the quiet erosion of a connection that once felt so alive. You deserve a man who can receive your needs without collapsing under them, who doesn't experience your emotional reality as an attack on his character. That's not too much to ask for. It's actually the baseline for a healthy relationship, someone who can hear, I need more from you, without hearing you are a failure as a man. That distinction, that emotional capacity, is what separates a partner from a project. The sixth and final red flag is rush commitment without real depth. And this is different from love bombing, so stay with me. Love bombing is about overwhelming affection, the feelings, the intensity, the declarations. Rush commitment is about the structure, the labels, the exclusivity, the future planning, arriving before the foundation is actually laid. It's a man who wants to lock things down before you've had the chance to really see each other, before conflict has been navigated, before the first difficult conversation, before you've seen how he handles disappointment or stress or not getting what he wants. And that rush to commit can feel deeply romantic. It can feel like certainty, like he's so sure about you that he doesn't want to wait. But here's the question you need to ask yourself: sure about what exactly? Because what he knows after 6 weeks isn't you. It's the version of you that exists at the beginning, the version that's easiest, most exciting, most charged with potential. That's not a relationship, that's a beginning. And a man who commits to the beginning before there's been any real difficulty is often someone who doesn't actually want the work of a real relationship. He wants the comfort of having someone. He wants the security of the label. And the moment things get complex, the moment the honeymoon friction sets in, his commitment will reveal how shallow its roots actually are. Real commitment comes after you've seen each other clearly, after he's seen you when you're frustrated or struggling or needing something he doesn't immediately know how to give, after you've seen him when things don't go his way, when he's tired, when he has to choose between his comfort and your needs. Commitment means something when it's chosen in the light of real knowledge. When it happens before that, when the ring comes before the relationship, it's not commitment. It's infatuation with a deadline. Here's what I want you to walk away with today. None of these 6 red flags are about finding a perfect man. There is no perfect man. There is no perfect woman. This isn't about holding someone to an impossible standard. It's about holding the relationship to a necessary one: honesty, consistency, accountability, emotional presence, and the willingness to grow. Those aren't extras, those are the foundation. And if the foundation isn't there, it doesn't matter how strong the feelings are. Feelings without foundation don't build a life. They build a cycle, and you've probably already lived at least one of those. So here's the mindset shift I want to leave you with. Stop asking, does he love me? Start asking, does this relationship have the structure to hold love? Because love without structure is just emotion adrift. It can be real and still not be enough. You are not asking for too much when you want consistency. You are not asking for too much when you need accountability. You are not asking for too much when you want a man who can receive your needs without making you feel like a burden. You are asking for the minimum conditions under which love can actually survive, and you deserve someone who understands that. If this video helped you see something more clearly today, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 6 red flags have you personally experienced, and which one do you think women overlook most often. I read everything in this community, and your answers genuinely shape what I cover next. If you're not subscribed yet, now is the time. Hit that button because we go deep on this channel and this conversation is just getting started. I'll see you in the next one.